Good morning. I'm Riley Adams, and today I'm lucky enough to be interviewing and sharing with you all one of my closest friends, Jaslyn Dugmore, on how gender has personally influenced her and her beliefs regarding gender. Jazz is one of the most kind, caring, and intelligent human beings I've been blessed to meet, a feminist, and she is currently a practicing dietitian undergoing her PhD in how people with co occurring substance use and mental health concerns experience food and eating. She's a remarkable woman. So, considering that information, I'd first like to ask you, Jazz, if you believe your gender has had a significant influence on your decision to pursue a career in dietetics.
I think it's had an influence in the sense that women are socially conditioned to choose certain careers rather than it being an explicit choice. Like, for example, dietetics is a very female-dominated profession, so 98% of dietitians are women, and that stems in part from dietetics coming from professions or areas like home economics and cooking, which have historically and socially been quite female-driven industries. And so, in the sense that I'm a woman pursuing a typically female profession, um, it is one of those sort of implicit things or subconscious things, perhaps. Um, and another big influence, I would say, is that generally women in society experience more pressure to control their bodies with food and eating, and tend to be more interested in dieting and losing weight, and therefore a lot of women go into dietetics, and especially a lot of women with disordered eating patterns. So, and I fell into that category as well. So in that sense, yes, but not explicitly.
Thank you for sharing that. Um, have you experienced any limitations throughout your life or on your pathway to becoming a dietitian due to gender stereotypes or bias?
Um, I think this is a really interesting question because I mean, I imagine I would answer differently if I was, say, a female engineer in in a really male dominated industry and sort of having to fight for getting positions, etc. But being in a profession that's mostly dominated by women, I've noticed that the biggest struggle is actually um, the infighting that happens, or like the cattiness that happens in professions. Especially I notice in my when I did my clinical rotations in hospital, there's quite a lot of um, gossiping, or maybe like a difficulty in addressing conflict that maybe comes from the personality types of dietitians, of us being quite conflict averse and maybe therefore being more catty. um, so at least I feel insecure. I feel insecure around other women in my profession, but I'm not sure how much that's related to my gender or how much it's related to maybe the personality types of dietitians generally, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Um, and would you be able to disclose your beliefs on gender in modern society?
Um, like, can I tell you what my beliefs are about gender in modern
Yeah,
society?
no, yes, please. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I think that I don't know, and this sort of comes back to feminism generally, where I think we're at a point where unfortunately, like, we are still, we women are still having to fight for rights in certain parts of the world, and do still experience quite a lot of discrimination in parts of everyday life, um, even in like Western developed worlds. But I think that gender and feminism like should be moving beyond just power imbalances between men and women to power imbalances more generally. And I think it's also important to acknowledge, now that, you know we know there are more genders than just than just men and women, and I would be interested to know also how people who are non-binary or gender fluid navigate industries that are typically male or female as well, and how that sort of works. um I know that didn't directly answer your question, but that's
No,
sort of where my mind
that was
goes.
excellent. A
um,
very good response. No, right on,
yeah,
Jazz. Thank you so much for doing this interview with me today. There's so much I'd love to be able to share with you with all my classmates, but it's just not long enough time period. Thank you so much, Jazz. You have a good day, mate.
thank you.
Bye, buddy.